Hi everyone, and welcome to Local Notes. This is a video and podcast series dedicated to local musicians and their craft. I'm Dave Wright, and the only thing I can play is the radio. But I do enjoy listening to great music, and with a few of my friends, I spend a lot of time traveling around to hear some of our best local music. This series has two real objectives. One is to give some of the great talent an opportunity to tell their side of the story. I'm talking about the kind of stuff we don't normally get to hear about. Secondly, I'm trying to bring some attention to an area that's really hurting right now. Where would we be without all these super talented people that keep us entertained? So let's not waste any more time and get to it. Hey everyone, this is the little note before the beginning of episode 2 with Bob Banerjee. I just have a few notes I want to throw out there about the episode. First of all, a lot of great stuff hit the cutting room floor, simply trying to get it down to under an hour, which I didn't do. So it's still an hour and 2 minutes. However, I'm doing everything I can to in the future to get them a little bit shorter. I just don't see somebody sitting for an hour and watching these things on their phone. Although we are getting good responses from podcasts. I noticed there was people in Chicago and Portland listening already. So that was fantastic. I was excited about that. Second thing is one of the things that got cut out was Bob talking about some injuries that he's had and his rehabilitation, and his wife, Rinty, who has MS, and what a hard time in his life that was, and her faith in God bringing him through. And it was just an interesting story, very good. In this episode, he talks a lot about some other musicians. John Parindo, at Gary Antall's request, he talks about Ralph Moore and his band and some times down in Washington County, PA. Real quick, for those of you that don't know, Bob Banerjee is a member of the band called Corned Beef and Curry here in Pittsburgh. Bob normally plays fiddle and mandolin, guitar. John McCann plays guitar and sings, does most of the singing. And Hamish is the drummer and also plays the washboard. They're a phenomenal band. If you ever get a chance into Pittsburgh to see them, I promise you, regardless of what type of music you listen to, you won't be disappointed. How about we give a listen to Bob Banerjee? Thanks. Here we are live. My Bob Banerjee. Yay! This is episode number 2, and I special guest Bob Banerjee. I've been a fan for a long time. He plays with John McCain and John McCann. I want to make sure I pronounce it right. And Brad Dindak? Hamish. In Corned Beef and Curry. Welcome, Bob.
David, it's so good to be here.
Fabulous. I'm almost speechless. I get so nervous when I start these things. It's funny.
Dude, speechless. You? Never.
So hopefully I get better as I go down the road. So my first question for you today, what have you been doing to stay busy during COVID? We're going to get to all the other stuff, but I want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
What a great question. I thrive on live interaction, so I'm missing it a lot. And I mean, I'm missing it. There are other musicians I know that are really comfortable with just playing from their hearts out to an audience, and that makes them happy. My happiness usually derives from the interaction, so I'm missing this whole big thing. What I've done is, yes, I have gotten into a lot of remote stuff. what I've done is to keep myself busy, Dave, is I've been getting tracks from other people all over the country. And I have been adding violin and mandolin, banjo, guitar, whatever they need. I've been adding to their tracks on my computer and
Mhm.
then kind of finishing off things like that. I'm really lucky. I have some good friends that are in local churches. So I've been actually playing not only in live services, sometimes I've also been playing um, music backgrounds on when they do their remote stuff. So they've been bringing in, there's a gentleman by the name of BJ Collins, who's involved with Mount Lebanon United Methodist Church. And he has a great program, music program that we do all kinds of neat things. So that's been keeping me busy, and I've been writing a
Mhm.
lot. I don't know whether there's going to be a new CD that's coming out or not, but I'm determined at some point something's going to happen. So that's happening.
That was my next question. Do you write a lot of your own music?
I do. I do. I
Yeah.
just don't perform it because I'm always afraid to perform my stuff for other people. There's so much
Really?
good stuff that's out there.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what's your writing process? How do you write? Do you see the music first or the lyrics first or
I do usually come up with a hook lyric first,
uh-huh.
and
Okay.
then from there, I kind of picture what kind of a rhythmic pattern it's going to be. And then there's this orchestral background in my head that takes over from being an orchestra for this many years, that
Mhm.
I kind of hear all the different parts that I want to put on it, and then I try and flesh it in with stuff.
Oh,
Sometimes it's that way, or sometimes I'm just picking on a guitar
right.
and I'll come across a couple of interesting chord changes that I want to incorporate into something, and it'll do that. I know other people take like uh, tons of time working on songs. I generally don't. My songs usually just spill out. My lyrics usually just spill out, and then I have a song, and then I might change it like a little bit here and there.
So that kind of leads me to my next question, and I've asked everybody this. So somebody told me once, and I don't even remember who it was, that they said everything that you want to remember, you need to remember it when you're young because you can't remember it when you're older. So I can remember every song I listened to, all the lyrics, in my head now when I was 18 years old. But if I could listen to a song yesterday 100 times and I couldn't remember the first line. How do you remember so many songs that you play?
I'm sorry, I forgot the entire first part of everything you were saying. I'll tell you what old age does.
Yeah,
I got you. I got you right there.
you know what I
It's
mean?
just, you know what? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. And this is definitely something that I agree with. When you're younger, you associate various songs, lyrics with a moment of time in your life. You are growing at that time. So those songs become foundational in your growth pattern. When you're older, you're already grown up. You're already forgetting things. I
Yeah,
don't think that you remember music and you don't remember lyrics as much because the rest of life has taken over that space and you're there.
yeah,
So I'm a firm believer that the reason people go back to nostalgia music, and the reason that folk music is never going to go out of style, the reason that simple music is never going to go out of style, is because all of those are formative to what we have in our lives. They're formative to hooking up a brain cell, a memory, and a musical moment at
yeah,
that time. And that becomes its own nucleus that drives us, right? So
right,
you're absolutely right. I can remember REO Speedwagon songs, but I can't remember the Drake song that I heard last week.
right,
Okay,
right.
it's all there.
So let's say you guys decided to do a new song next week. How would you remember that song? What's the process you'll go through to remember it?
I'm really lucky because normally I'm not the lead singer, so I have
That's
to. I
true.
use
No, that's true.
That's true. So I'm okay with that. I just turned to John, and John has the hard part. But John, being that he has been a solo performer for so long, he's got it kind of involved in what he does. And
Right.
what he does do is he just plays it over and over again until he learns it to the point of what he wants. I mean, the last songs that we learned were still, almost a decade ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but if there's new songs that are coming out, it's always good. I think our generational audience doesn't necessarily want brand new songs off the radio.
Hmm.
They might want something that is original from us,
Hmm.
or they might want our interpretations of songs that they know.
Right.
I think that's kind of cool. Is that and as you well know, one of the songs that we've been doing that with for a long time is "Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald." Right?
Right.
Everybody knows how it went,
Yes.
but something about the way that we changed it has breathed new life into that, and then that's become kind of a brand for corned beef and curry for what we do.
You are definitely one of the funnest performers, one of the funnest shows. Corned beef and curry is one of the funnest shows to attend.
Oh,
There's
hang on. Yeah, my head's getting fatter. I can feel it right now.
and that's not even my opinion. That's just everybody I know.
You're very, you're very kind.
It's true.
Thank you very much. We've had decades of great performances and great audiences
Mhm.
and fantastic friends. Like, I mean, you and I met through music and everything. That's how we gauge our success, by how many good friends that we have, not just people that come to hear us play, but people
That
that are
is
actually.
something that I hear from performers more and more that you wouldn't even believe, that their music brings people together.
Mhm.
That I met you through a guy named Bill Jameson at the at
I
the
love Bill.
yeah, absolutely. And then we kind of got involved with the crowd with corned beef and curry, or at the Crab Shack, and we started doing the things there. And it's just brought so many people and all of us together. It's amazing. And I've met
And
friends through you.
if you talk to most musicians, they will tell you that there is a joy in performing for an audience, but that joy is tripled, quadrupled, quintupled, whatever, when that audience treats them as normal people, not
Right.
just some performer.
Right.
And that is where I think corned beef and curry, we what we did a long time ago is we said the difference between the people that are listening to us and us on stage is very little. And as you know, what we do is we try and literally, physically, we try to remove the barriers. We try to remove the wall
Right.
between the audience and that. And we do that by, me with the wireless, being able to get out inside the audience, and did that at the Penn Brewery, where I jumped around on from table to table, and with Hamish coming out with his washboard and doing that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so much fun when you destroy that little area that separates the audience from the band, when they realize they're part of the band.
Right.
That really makes it worthwhile.
Right. Right. The
So,
Congo line.
oh,
That's
the
what we,
Congo.
the Congo line.
There's always a good place for a conga line
It's always a good
in a
place.
party like that. But but it really boils down to what we were just talking about, Dave. It's how can you create new friends? How can you create
Mhm.
our challenge, like everybody else, is getting new audiences. And the best way for us to get new audiences is to treat them as if they're no different from our older audiences. Find
Right.
out what makes them tick, what do they want, and try and arrange, try to make them happy. I mean, it's a consumer driven business. Music is.
Mhm.
If you don't make your consumer happy, um, you're not going to go very far. I actually listened to the Gary interview. He's a great friend, first of all. He's
Uh-huh.
an unbelievable talent, and what a great way for you to introduce this series out there with him. That's phenomenal.
He's a busy guy, and he's been wonderful to me. So it was nice of him to take the time, and I know that he's involved in a lot of things, and it was really great for him to do that. So which brings me to another question, because this is a good segue, because he asked me to talk to you about this.
Gary did.
Gary did. When I told him you're going to be my next guest, he had a special request. He wants to hear some stories about being a member of the Ralph Moore Band and Rinky Dinks and the old days. Now you're going to have to tell everybody
Yeah.
what this is about, what Rinky Dinks is, because nobody probably knows.
No. Wow. Remind Gary that I owe him one. All right. So back in the 80s, okay, way back in the 80s, I was lucky enough to be introduced to country music through a couple of different things. My background is so strange in terms of I'm classically trained, and yet I think I had the most amount of fun when I started playing along with singer-songwriters in the Pittsburgh area back in the 80s. Through that, I met so many different people that were playing. I started playing bluegrass. Okay, so first of all, this is where the joke comes in. All right, the joke comes in that I was playing with a country band at that time, and people not naturally went to the next level by saying, instead of saying, "What is that fat brown fiddle player doing up there?" they said, "Cowboys and Indian." Okay, that joke has lasted for 4 decades now. After all that, one of my dearest friends at that time that I met, and he invited me to play in his band, was Ralph Moore.
Okay.
Now, at that time, Ralph was an unassuming, just a normal, fun guy that played guitar. There was a place in Washington, PA, okay, had a great big dome on it. I think it was called Omar's before, something like that. Anyways, there was a British guy who bought that, Jim Leeds, I believe his name was, who bought that and turned it into and called it the Country Junction.
Okay.
In Washington, Pennsylvania. And it was great. It had all the trademarks of a country bar. It had the huge bar, it had the tables, it had a dance floor. Ralph put together a good group of just normal guys. There was a guy by the name of Randy that played banjo. There was Frank that played bass. We had Mo Ryan, he played steel guitar. So he put together an awesome country band, and we would do old school country and watch people do their line dancing, and and when I mean line dancing, we're talking about old school country. We're talking about oh gosh, George Jones.
Okay.
And more George Jones than George Strait. But then along came this guy on the country charts by the name of John Anderson, swangin'.
Yep.
And Ralph was absolutely, he was able to copy John Anderson, and we did just about everything in the John Anderson catalog that you can possibly imagine.
Seminole Win.
Yeah, Seminole Win was, oh, that was a phenomenal way. And I would play, so I cut my teeth on learning country music and new country music with Ralph in those days. And it was a great experience for me because, again, I'm this I wasn't even fat then, just a skinny, nerdy Indian fiddle player, right? But I made so many great friends. I learned more about fiddling than I can possibly tell you in those years. I learned about what it was like to play at the Route 40 national celebration, and I learned how to play fiddle contests at the Cane Club in Wheeling, West Virginia, and all this. It was such a great way of showing America and music at its finest. They accepted me. They were a little bit iffy about it, but they accepted me as a fiddle player. And we did great things to do that. That was my introduction into this. Now, Ralph was able to take a lot of that attention that he gained, and he opened up his own place in Prosperity, PA. After Country Junction had closed down, he was able to pull up his own place that had a stage, and he opened it up to all the local bands to come through. And to this day, Rinky Dinks still has a great reputation as this place where you get bluegrass, you get country, you get bands from West Virginia, you get bands from Western Pennsylvania, you get soloists, he did a great job decades later of providing a legacy to that music.
Yep.
So I'm proud of him. I'm proud of his family. I'm proud of what he's established as a place where people can go and hear live music. He's to be commended for that for sure.
It's still there and they still do it. I've been to all the honky tonks in Nashville, and Rinky Dinks is better than any of them. It absolutely is. They got a mechanical bull sitting in the corner, and it's an amazing throwback to the way things used to be. It's so
You'll hear stories of the pet pig
yeah.
that used to go around too. He was perfectly comfortable all through there. That was it. Just it's just a day in the life of, you go there, you're drinking your stuff, and yep, there's a pig that actually comes by. So, it's good.
In a million years, I couldn't imagine you playing at Rinky Dinks. Not in a million years. Now, have you played there lately?
I have not. I haven't played there. I literally have not played there for 15, 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I tell you about the first place that Ralph and I ever played, though? It wasn't Rinky Dinks.
I'd love to hear it.
There was a place on 519 called 84 Lakes Tavern. 84 Lakes Tavern was literally, they had a pond, and then they had the bar.
Okay.
We played not to get paid. We played for beer and fish sandwiches. That's it. So Ralph and Randy and Frank and I, we all came there. It was like, that was way before anybody knew what an open stage was and whatnot.
Right.
We would literally play a set, and while we were playing the set, they would go out to the pond, catch the fish, bring it back in, clean it, fry it, and have it ready for us by the set break. So we'd have it ready. So that was good. And of course, you know, the beer was a good thing. I mean, that was a good trade-off for that. Amazing. So when I think about even before we were on stage being a band, we were just a bunch of guys sharing music, beer, and fish sandwiches. And it's still, to this day, what a great way to get started with everything.
Good times. Just good times. Amazing.
So hoping that answered all of Gary's questions. I mean, that was like...
I can't wait for him to hear it. I really can't. What is the difference between a fiddle and a violin, and which one do you play?
The difference between a fiddle and a violin is how much alcohol I've had to drink. It's always good to get a prop in there. See, just like that.
That one's from Cop.
Of course. How did I know that? How did I know that he was going to do that? All right. So I'll give you all the philosophical shit first, okay? And then I'll tell you all the other stuff. That's it.
Okay.
The difference between a fiddle and a violin, philosophically, is that they're the same instrument, okay? It's kind of like Eddie Van Halen played the guitar, but B.B. King played the guitar, but Bob Dylan played the guitar.
Right.
All right?
Right.
It's a matter of styles, and it's a matter of adjusting that guitar to go to the style that you want. There are blues guitaring. There's, you know, Stevie Ray Vaughan had a way of playing guitar far different from B.B. King, and they were both blues guitarists, right? So a fiddle is just a stylistic way of playing a violin.
So we've kind of hit on some of the highlights, but could you give us a little timeline for Bob Banerjee, how he got started? You know, where I know you spent some time in Texas a little bit. And
yeah, you know, I don't know whether a lot of people know this. I was not born in the United States. I was born in India, and I came over here when I was 3 years old. So I came over because my father did his master's at Texas A&M University in 1955. He got the endorsement of the Rotary organization to bring him over. And then they came back and they said, you know, Mr. Banerjee, you did such a good job with your master's. We'd like to sponsor you for your doctorate at Texas A&M University. And he said, well, I can't do that. This is 1960. I've got my wife. I've got my kid. And they said, well, you know what? Bring them along. So they sponsored my mom and young Bob to come over to the United States in 1960. Keep in mind what happened at the time. Kennedy had just been elected. You know, we were the folk movement was huge. my dad, to his credit, came over and said, "This is going to be a great place to raise my kid as an American." And at a young age, here I am in Texas,
Right.
and that was the beginning. My dad was a college professor, so wherever he could get research projects, we would go. So we would travel to various states every time that he had someplace to go. So in the early years after my dad got his doctorate, we went to California, Florida, Georgia, Chicago, um, Oklahoma. My goodness, we did so much movement. Every place was where my dad would get a research project and he would go and do some stuff like that.
Mhm.
But of all things, we ended up in Pittsburgh in 1967. So from 1960 to 67, I was like an army brat, but I was more a, academic brat? That's probably a better way to
Right,
put it.
right, right.
But I learned so much in those 7 years of travel about people and about the people of the United States and about the geography of the United States. I loved it. My mom and dad, again, to their credit, they wanted to be American so much. They joined the Peace Corps. They actually taught the Peace Corps the
Wow.
Indian Bengali language. And then so they were so committed and they were so happy that we started our life as Americans in this country. My brother was born in Connecticut and he became the first Yankee in our family, born here, American citizen. And then after that, our entire family became citizens. I became a citizen when I
Mhm,
was 21
mhm.
and had to study for it like everybody else, like all immigrants. And no more green card. I had to learn who my congressmen were, who my representatives were, the whole stuff all about. Of course, it was great because the judge already knew that I had been there for how many years. And he said, "What's the best thing about America?" And I replied, "The Steelers." And he said, "You're in." You're in. This is it. I think we caught him on the good day on that one.
Yeah. Amazing.
So I always tell people that one of the benefits that I have is I try to bring the world knowledge to my friends, but at heart, we're all part of the world. So we do that through music. We do that through things like this, David. So I'm really happy that you're getting a chance to share it. People have to look behind all of the divisiveness and all the rhetoric that's out there. And they have to see that each one of us lives our lives as just human beings trying to survive and trying to make other people happy. And ultimately, if you take everything else away, the music makes that so much easier. How's that for philosophy?
I love it.
But but I'm a firm believer, and anybody that knows me knows that that is the most important thing. I will do anything to make sure that I can bring people together through music and have some fun at it. Distract. There's too much reality that affects us badly. I am there to say we need the distraction and the purity of music to distract us for that little bit of time. So that's always a good thing.
Yeah, it's like a movie. It's a time where you can just get away and be happy.
Exactly.
Forget about everything else. Yep.
Exactly. So thank goodness for all of our great musicians that we have in the Pittsburgh area to allow us to do that. That's all.
Absolutely. So all this traveling around and finally ending up at Pittsburgh. At what point did you pick up a violin? I mean,
Really
where
good
did it
question.
start?
I was in fifth grade when my mom and dad came to me and they said, "What do you want to play?" And I think my initial interest was like, I said, "I want to play trumpet" or something like that, right?
Okay.
Um, and then they said, "Well, you know what? There's a lot of Indian music." My dad used to play sitar. Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
So he was a very good and accomplished sitar player. And he was saying how, if you play violin and sitar, you can play together. And, we are thinking about Ravi Shankar and Yudhi Menuhin, who played violin and sitar together. And so originally, my mom and dad thought that a violin would be better for me for that. For me, it was like, okay, yeah, so what? I'll do it.
Mhm.
My first years of violin from fifth grade to seventh grade were literally a cat through a screen door, just yowling. It's like putting people through pain. I mean, real pain. I'm surprised that I didn't lose more neighbors at that time. Then the epiphany of between playing violin and playing violin was when I was in middle school, junior high, and the time that I joined orchestra. And it's for the first time I heard what it was like to be part of an ensemble. And Dave, that's what made all the difference in my life. It said, I'm not just one squeaky violin. I
Mhm.
am a violin among a bunch of squeaky violins.
Right,
But,
right.
but the point is that I'm part of a team. It's the same thing that I'd never, because I was never a jock, because I was never involved in sports. I never got that kind of camaraderie that I did.
Right, right.
Orchestra opened up my brain, just absolutely, and my heart for that matter. That's where the first time where I heard all of these other voices, all these other instruments coming in. And whenever I would listen to a tune, I'd listen to the intervals that were there between the violin tune and the brass. What were they doing? And the percussion, what were they doing? By the time I got to high school and I was in high school orchestra, I was a little bit better. I was taking it more seriously. I had private lessons for violin that was definitely helping me out a lot. By the time I got to high school, it was something where I treated it seriously. I treated it as in, if I play the wrong notes, it's going to screw up everybody else that's on there. So I'm going to hit the right notes. So I did take it seriously enough to be. I was principal second violin. I went to Mount Lebanon High School, which had a great string program, and I was very thankful that to this day they taught me that technique was very important. It's very important to get the underlying stuff before you do anything. At the end of high school, I auditioned for the Pittsburgh Youth Symphony because I felt that strongly about it. And with my private lessons, I was able to get into that. And that was a huge move for me because all of a sudden I was playing with the cream of the crop of all young musicians from the Pittsburgh area. And some of these kids, there was a girl that was in our first violin section. She was the kind of she went to New York every weekend to get lessons at Juilliard and then come back home to Pittsburgh again after that. So that's a commitment. Let me tell
Yeah,
you. So that
yeah.
I was never ever going to go there. All right. I did not want to be a full-time musician when I grew up. I wanted to be just a guy that was having fun and really enjoyed the violin.
Right.
Guess who I met there at Pittsburgh Youth Symphony?
Who?
John Parendo. You had mentioned Johnny Parendo. So John, I was in high school, and John, I believe, was 12, and he came in. So he was there in the violins. I was there in the violins. We were both sharing the same kind of thing. We didn't know each other very much back then. We didn't.
Uh-huh.
But how wicked that a decade later, we were both playing for country bands. He was playing for Unwound. I
Uh-huh.
was playing for Silverado. How strange our paths go that this is how we open up into doing things. So to this day, the difference is John is the ultimate, he's a fiend as a classical violinist. He is an absolute treasure, and what
Wow.
he brings to his studio recordings, what he brings to his performance, he is just a wonderful violin role model. He's a great guy for that. What John was doing in the early days with Unwound was fantastic because he was playing violin in a country rock band. And
Hmm.
I mean, they were really a rock band with a country overtone.
Right.
Man, the stuff that he put out with that band really made it. I was with a band called Silverado, and we were more traditional country. We would do all the Garth Brooks, and we would do the George Strait and the Alan Jacksons and the Randy Travises and things like that. So I learned a lot about how to play country at
Hmm.
that time too.
Hmm.
And it was great because Pittsburgh was big enough that they had enough room for both kind of bands to go on. And even now, I mean, we talked about our friends in the band El Dorado, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
so cool that there are still so many I mean, there are name brand bands that are out there that are still playing country, even from back in those days. El Dorado was back in those days too. So how cool is that we're still around?
They are tight. They are so amazing.
Yeah.
Who was your probably your biggest influence? Who did you really admire? Who set you in the direction?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Who set me in the directions? I had it's not a one. It's not a one person. There's different stuff for different genres. Violin, I mean, from a violin standpoint, one of my all-time heroes, of course, was Jascha Heifetz, because Jascha Heifetz was was a premier um, violin performer, violinist at
Mhm.
that time. But soon, because I mean, there were so many other people that were there. Itzhak Perlman became such a hero because for him to get past his polio and for him to become such a world star in violin, and then after that there was Joshua Bell, and there's, because being young and bringing stuff to it, every generation I've received kind of a different respect for different people that are out there. Um, from the classical side, the from a violin side, one of my heroes growing up was Stefan Grappelli, who was a jazz violinist in World War II stages, and he worked along with Django Reinhardt and the Hot Club of Paris. And I learned all about swing jazz by listening to Stefan Grappelli. And then later on, there was Charlie Daniels. He definitely affected the way that I play. He definitely affected how how people think about fiddle in music.
Right.
There was the band Alabama, okay,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
used fiddle as such a great way to coda all of the stuff at the end of their songs. Come and sit. Um, and then there was Mark O'Connor, who was a studio god in violin backup for other people. And then eventually, when he started putting his own stuff out, it's like, so I can't give you a single violin hero, but more like as I found different kinds of music, I found different heroes moving me
Right.
forward. And
Right.
now I look at old sharecropper black violinists from the 20s and 30s, Don Sugarcane Harris, Stuff Smith. Oh my God, I went through a whole bunch of learning history kind of things, trying to look at all of these old violinists that have affected violin music nowadays,
Mhm.
and not to ignore, people that made it fun. Doug Kershaw with
Mhm.
Cajun fiddling, diggy diggy die,
Raging
diggy diggy
Cajun.
low,
The
right?
Cajun, Raging Cajun. Right. Right. There
So
was it was the Kershaw brothers at first, right? Wasn't there two of
yes,
them? Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
correct. So you got
Yeah.
it. That's right. So yeah.
Yeah.
So but it's funny because again, you're talking about different styles of music, and you're talking about these people making it bigger. So by the time, and Shannon will tell you, by the time I got into Irish music, there were so many great Irish fiddle players. But the one that really got me was Eileen Ivers. She was the chief fiddle player for Riverdance.
Mhm.
And here's this wonderful woman from Brooklyn, New York, that had a modicum of classical training, and all the rest was playing by ear. And she's coming out of Limerick in Ireland with the Riverdance tour and playing this awesome fiddle stuff. And that got me into, whoa, this is really cool. Let's talk about some of the other fiddle players that are out there. And that led me to John McCann and playing Irish stuff here,
Mhm.
and then Gaelic Storm after
Right.
that. So
Right.
just one thing leads to another thing, and just, so classical, country, jazz, bluegrass, all this. I
You are
I am
everywhere.
I am the epitome. Well, you know the nickname I call myself. I am a jam slut. I will jam with anybody, anytime for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you are very well loved by all the other musicians in the city. I know that.
Aw, fooling them all the time.
How did you get started with John McCann and Hamish and start Corned Beef and Curry? Give me some details. How did you guys meet? How did the whole
Yeah.
thing get started?
One word:
Okay.
jail. No,
Really?
no,
Okay.
no. But it's always. But if we're gonna make up stuff, I mean that's a good a thing as any, right? That's it. We met in jail and we discussed the fact that we would be good partners. No, um, it was so funny because I met John when he was still doing his solo violin stuff. Violin, sorry. He was a solo artist.
Mhm.
He reached out to me because he was putting together a CD called This Day,
Okay.
and he was going to record, and he needed a fiddle player for one song. And
What year was this?
this was 1998.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
so I mean, decades ago, right? So
Right.
1998, John is recording this album, this CD of 12 Irish tunes. And the one tune that he had in mind was something that was called McPherson's Lament. Now I find out that there's versions of it called McPherson's Rant. But
Mhm.
the whole point is that the song was about a urban legend by the name of McPherson, who was like a Robin Hood character. He would go and he would rob from the rich and he would give to the poor. And he was known as a very colorful folk character. And he would go to the various Irish dances, the Céilís, and he would bring a fiddle and he would play fiddle for all these parties. And so you can get the idea of what kind of a colorful character this is.
Right.
Well, the legend goes, according to the song, that when McPherson was captured, he's sentenced to hang. He's sentenced to hang, and all the people say, "Well, wait a minute, no, he's an okay guy." Uh, they send out to have him pardoned. They send out a petition to have him pardoned. And as that petition goes out to get him resolved, the the sheriff slash executioner, whomever, he somewhat gleefully takes the violin and says, "You know, McPherson, after we've hung you, then or hanged you, excuse me,
Yep.
then what we're going to do is I'm going to sell your violin." And McPherson says, "Well, if I have my last request, I'd like to play one last song on my violin before you take it." So the song is about the fact that McPherson then takes this violin and he plays the last song that he'll ever play. And he plays the very last song. And when he's done with the song, he takes the violin and it breaks it over a stone. And he says, "Nobody will play the violin except for me. Nobody will play this violin except for me." The executioner is so upset with that even though the pardon is coming, he sets the clock back just so that he can hang McPherson. So the pardon was granted, but the executioner hanged him anyways,
Oh,
without the violin. Nice kids song from an Ireland
yeah.
kind of thing. But it's a great Irish, it's an Irish story song.
Uh-huh.
So John came to me and said, "Bob, I want you to play the violin part. And when you get to this part where you play the violin, I want you to play your violin as if it is the last song you will ever play on your violin." And I did. I went there. It didn't take more than 3 takes. The first take, I said, "You know, I don't have enough in it." And John actually said, "Look, it doesn't have to be Irish. This is you. This is you, Bob. If this was the last song that you would play on your violin, what would you do?" I came up with like 12 minutes straight of different things. Everything from jazzy stuff to classical stuff to Irish stuff. And by the time we were done, I was crying. John was crying. The recording engineer was crying. We had just put so much emotion in that 12 minutes of tune. It was just ridiculous. John, when we were finished with that song, we were so happy with that. He said, "Hey, what can you do on this song?" So then I played that. And what can you do on this song? So before long, I was doing 10 songs out of the 12 songs on that CD. Okay. One of the people that was on that CD was a Pittsburgh Steeler lineman by the name of Justin Strelzik.
Okay.
We didn't know this at the time, but he also played banjo. So Justin Strelzik played banjo. Now, Justin, just to give you an idea of, now we're in this guy's house recording, and I'm listening to the track in the guy's den,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden it's like somebody turned out the lights. 1 second there's light and I can see everything going on, and the next second it's dark. It's because Justin shows up and he's standing in the doorway and he's blocking all light from that doorway.
There's no doorway.
There's no doorway. And Justin said, "So what do you think of my banjo part?" And it's like, "What? I'm going to tell you that you didn't do well? What?"
Right, right.
But he was a charming man.
Uh-huh.
even if he had never been in the Steelers, if he had never been, you know, he was just a fun guy to have on
Right.
that. So between John involving him and involving me, we had such a good time putting together John's CD for that. So to this day, I encourage anybody that gets a chance, get that CD called "This Day" from John,
This-
and and you'll find out that there's Justin and like I said, I'm on a number of tracks. I think we just re-released this like about a decade ago. But
where can people find it? Is it on Apple Music or is it out there
if
anywhere?
it's
Is there a
not, you know
website?
what? I think by the end of this year, as in by the end of 2020, we are looking at a new production company to put this with, where we're going to take a lot of the stuff that was self-produced and
Mhm.
we're going to put it underneath these labels so that all of us are doing that. I know that we're taking our last corned beef and curry CD, which is called Live-ish Irish, and
Mhm.
that is going to soon be available on all the major entry areas. And then, of course, right now I have my last CD, which is called Foreign Country. That's out there right now. You can get that from Apple Store. You can get that from Amazon and elsewhere. There's that was kind of a fun project.
Awesome. That's an amazing story.
So John and I met through that CD, and then the more John would do solo gigs, the more he would invite his friends to come and join him.
Mhm.
One day we're in the North Hills pub or North Park
North
pub,
Park Lounge.
North Park Lounge. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
the North Park Lounge, and somebody came up to us. John and I were playing as Bob and his friend John. John used to call John and his sidekicks, and he used to have like everybody come in. And one day somebody came up and said, you guys are really awesome. You should play more together. And like you're Irish and you're like Indian. And then somebody said, yeah, like he's like corned beef. And I said,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like curry, and corned beef and curry was born that night as a name.
Just as an
So
offhand comment at a bar.
offhand comment at the bar. That's it.
Wow.
Now
Awesome.
I always follow that story with the first time that we played as corned beef and curry. We went to the Irish club in Swissville, and they put in the program. They put in the program musical entertainment by the corned beef and cabbage band. So I went to the little blue-haired lady that put together the program, and I said, "Excuse me, not meaning to be impolite, but it's corned beef and curry,
Right.
not corned beef and cabbage." And she looked at me incredulously and said, "Now, what the hell kind of dish would that be?" Not quite
Oh
getting the joke, are we?
my
And
God.
that was the beginning of corned beef and curry, as
And
such.
the rest is history. I mean, you guys, so this is a big thing that Gary and I talked about. You don't just play local. You
No,
play up in Erie. You play in Florida. You travel, right? You guys are
we
all over
do.
the place. Yeah.
We do. Um, we would love to say that we'd like to stay in Pittsburgh, but to be perfectly honest, we have a little bit of a wanderlust when it comes to that.
Mhm.
It goes with the idea, like all musicians, I think, want to build up new friends, new fans,
Yep.
and we found one set of fans in the Parrot Head community,
Hmm.
and we found another set of fans in the Irish community. So it's really cool because we can go to Erie and we can play at the Irish Festival in Erie,
Right.
or we can go to Cleveland and we can play, or we can go to Put in Bay in Ohio and we can play a Parrot Head festival
Mhm.
there. Or as we were talking about earlier, there's something called Music on the Bay, which unfortunately won't happen this year because of COVID,
Mhm.
but that's all the way in Florida in Tampa Bay. It's a matter of there's something universal the way that we play our music. It's not just folk, it's not just Irish, it's not just pop. It's a combination of good time, hand clapping, beer drinking, foot stomping, have a good time
Right.
music.
Right.
And it's, and as I mentioned earlier, we destroy the walls, we make it as interactive as we possibly can. And I think that we ache for the opportunities to take that in places and bring in new friends and make new friends that way. Of course, with a pandemic, that has been squashed a lot.
Right. Right.
But when this gets back up, there's no doubt about it that we'll be back out doing the same things.
We will, and these venues will be back. And unfortunately, I know we've lost some great venues during this, but there'll be new ones to take their places, and it'll be back with a force.
I'm
And
ready to be back at the Crab Shack. I'm ready, like anytime.
the one of the things that I wanted to tell you is one of the amazing things about a corned beef and curry show is when you go, yes, you're going to hear a lot of Irish tunes, okay? And I enjoy the Irish tunes. I love them. For some people, it's educational. They're hearing some music that they've never heard before.
Sure.
But they're also going to hear Knights in White Satin, the wreck of the Edmonds Fitzgerald.
Yep.
You never know what you guys are going to pull out.
We don't even know what we're going to play. we don't. I don't know whether you've caught this. We don't come out with a set list. Okay.
No.
We have the combined history of musical knowledge of 2.5 old people. Okay, that's how we work it. Even Hamish has a great rock and roll history.
Mm-hmm.
John is just an encyclopedia of classic rock.
Right.
And then I bring my share of it, and I add my whatevers to it.
Right.
And then Hamish adds, not only is he the cheesecake and good looking, but he adds the youth personality on this too. Yep. We literally look at you guys in the audience. We look at you and say, we should pull off some Thompson twins right now and Hold Me Now. And then after that, we should probably do as Bruce Springsteen, Jersey Girl,
right,
or whatever else.
Right.
That we pride ourselves on the idea that we don't know what the hell we're doing until we get up there and do it.
It's no show is ever the same. You never hear the same songs. It's never the same. Last thing from me, I thought this is something that I'm going to ask everybody, because I think it's an important question. Where do you see Bob Banerjee in 5 years?
Wow. What a great question. I'm going to have to, wow, that one, if this was a job interview, I have my professional as Bob as an IT guy. Mm-hmm. Sure, I got all that planned out. Bob as a musician and as a person here. All right. 5 years from now, I want to be known as the guy that even in my old age, I am still playing interactive music like this. I want to be known. I certainly hope that John and Hamish and I are playing, but we are older fellows now, and evolution takes its toll on all of us. But no matter what, I'm going to be involved in the musical community. I am doing a lot of things, my own shows. I'm doing, like I said, I'm writing a lot. I'm recording somewhat. I have a whole live show that I do using my loop box, where I can do a solo show, but using the looper as well. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that within 5 years, I'll continue doing more of that, Dave. And more than anything else, the thing that will not change is that I plan on playing with every musician under the sun. Anybody that will have me, I will be there with a smile on my face and the fiddle and the mandolin and the guitar available for whatever they need. I thrive. My life is dependent on me sharing music with other people. It's pretty evident. Yep. But I'm surrounded by people like you and Shannon that help to promote good music and live music in Pittsburgh. I have been involved with so many great musical communities. Come on over, Shannon. Come on.
Well, bring your chair. Come sit down next to me.
Yes.
We're gonna.
Thanks for checking in with us, Bob.
Absolutely, and I can't not say that one of my greatest musical friends was Rick Jackson. And I know that Rick is no longer with us, but his spirit, he is here with us, but his spirit in helping Corned Beef and Curry move was so important. So I've got to tell you, Corned Beef and Curry would be absolutely nothing were it not for Rick and Shannon and introducing us to Andy M. Stewart, for example, Mike Gallagher, who was in our group. We were such a great team. And on the flip side, on the Parrot Head side, we had a good friend of ours, still with us, of course, and absolutely a powerhouse in the Parrot Head community. His name is Fred Wonder. Fred did for us corned beef and curry on the Parrot Head side, and Rick and Shannon and Mike, they did stuff for us on the Irish side. And everybody needs friends like them to get forward progress on what they do.
Shake Russell still asks about your
And Shake,
so you got
oh
your
my
Texas
gosh,
roots there. So
one of the most amazing singer-songwriters that you will ever hear about.
you played on one of the last CDs.
Yes,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm game. I'm ready to play a bunch of remote stuff. So just
We see him, we keep up with Shake. I didn't know who he was until a few weeks ago. And I've been kind of watching him on Facebook. He does like a live show a couple times a week. And I try to catch one when I can.
He's an incredible musician. And I'll pepper this with something that when I went to Texas to go to school in 1979. This was after I graduated from Point Park, and I went to Texas A&M because I was going to be a legacy and do my MBA at the place where my dad went to school.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Texas A&M University back in 1979 to 1980, and I was going to Shake Russell concerts with my friends then, never knowing that umpteen zillion years later, he would actually be a friend and a musical comrade of
and you
mine.
playing on his CD. Yeah.
And playing on his CD. Who would have thunk?
Yeah.
Who would have thunk? This is what music is great for, bringing people from all over places and putting things together.
Absolutely. I've made so many friends. For me, starting this was, I have such a love for the music. And like I say in the intro, I can only play the radio. So I just tried to think of some way to get involved and some way to help. And this is what came out of it for me. And again, like we were saying earlier, I don't think that the impact will be immediate, but down the road, I think that they'll go back and look at these and go, this is a wealth of information.
Well, you have an absolutely steadfast promoter of what you're doing here. I will do whatever you need to promote this and get this into the public eye and pass around the fact that this is a great idea. I can't wait to hear some of the other interviews that you have lined up and do that. And man, just keep me involved in whatever you're doing.
I will. And I'll be reaching out to John and Hamish as well. So when I started the top 10, I wanted to really kind of be broad. Is there anything else you want to throw out there before we close up?
No, I'm thrilled that you're doing this. I wish that people that are listening to this podcast and watching this podcast will know that this is the greatest thing that you can possibly do, is understand that these are positive things to do. Don't dwell on the negative. Go to the positive. Be kind to everybody. Understand that music is just a universal way that's painless to be able to share between people. It doesn't involve political rhetoric. It doesn't involve religion. It's just a painless way to be kind to one another and do good things. That's the philosophy I live by, and I wish that more people would do that. And you guys are so effective at being able to market that. Toby says bye.
Bye, Toby.
Bye. Okay, right. We'll see you. It's been a good time.
Yeah,
it's been a great time.
Good holiday.
You too. Be safe, you guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.